Hi, I'm Dr. Tamara Agnew.
I'm Dr. Stephanie Champion, and today we're speaking with Dr. Andy Stapleton.
Andy is a scientist turned science communicator.
And he did a PhD on nanoparticles, and we'll leave it to him to explain it.
Welcome to Career Sessions with your hosts, Steph and Tamara. Proudly sponsored by Inspiring South Australia.
In this series of career sessions, all of our guests hold doctorates in their chosen field, and we invite them to talk about their pathway from PhD candidate to present day.
We ask them what they've learned, and we also ask them to give advice to people who might be thinking about a career in research when they've finished school or when they've finished their undergraduate degree. Dr. Andy Stapleton graduated from Newcastle University in 2011. He undertook his doctoral project at the School of Chemistry and Physical Sciences, and the title of his thesis is Nanoparticle-Based Organic Photovoltaic Devices.
Boom.
Andy talks science for a living, and in 2015 delivered a TEDx talk at Flinders University entitled The Illusion of Progress, about the experience and his experience as an early career researcher. These days, you'll find him behind the mic of his own podcast, Publish, Perish or Podcast. Welcome, Andy. We are really looking forward to hearing your story.
Thank you, Tamara. Did I get that right?
You did.
Absolutely.
Yes. All right.
What are you doing right now? So what is your current role and what does your day look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. Do you know what? I don't even know. I don't know the answer to both of those questions. Firstly, let's have a look. What's my current role? So I guess broadly it would be, I hate this term, but it's the closest, but entrepreneur, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at the moment, I am currently starting businesses. So I've got verbalize.science, which is a platform to help scientists communicate more effectively. And then also I'm starting kind of a content strategy consulting thing. I've got a couple of the little side projects with friends. So at the moment, I have chucked everything at the wall. I'm like a handful of spaghetti. I've chucked it at the wall and I'm seeing what sticks. And so I've got like a 5-year plan to go crazy on all of the things I actually like doing and see what sticks. And hopefully at least one of them will. And what an average day looks like is, I normally meet up with my verbalize.science team. I've got a small team of content producers, scientists, project managers, user interface people. We just stand up.
Does not sound like a small team.
Well, yeah, it's weird. Do you know what? It's weird. I've been saying small team for a little while, and then I'm like, oh shit, it's quite big. Yeah. So we meet up a couple times a week with those just typical stand up. Like, what are you doing? What are you up to? Let's move on. So that's quite easy, and it's a nice kind of start to the day. And apart from that, I am either putting out fires with clients, so Verbalize has entered into its client phase, so I'm either squashing fires or I'm working towards sort of like laying the foundations of a few other businesses. So all online, all scalable, and that's because my dream is to be able to travel while working.
Yep.
So that's the goal, is to have the freedom of movement so I don't have to go into an office space. Now, probably in about 5 years' time, when I listen back to this podcast, I'll be like, did I do it? And I hope I'm sat somewhere
Here
exotic.
Today, you said it.
That's right. Yeah. But so that's the end goal, is to launch a number of projects that I actually enjoy doing and hope that one of them sticks, and then I'll end up doing something I like for a very long time.
It's a very brave move, but has huge potential to pay off and
I hope so.
Be something really rewarding. Yeah.
So we want to go back to the beginning and days even before you went to university and ask about your family. And did your parents go to university? And when did you decide you wanted to go to university? And did you go straight after school?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my family are high school dropouts. I think my mum did very sort of good at like GCSE level in the UK. So that's what HSC here, maybe a little bit before, or year 10 certificate.
Year 10, yeah.
And my dad always used to joke that he got one qualification, and that's because he pissed off the teacher enough that they just gave it to him to like get him out of the classroom.
Yep.
I think it was in history. Anyway, so look, I am the first person in my extended family even to go to university. And it was something that I think was always just earmarked. I'm not sure whether it was for me, but my auntie always used to call me her little professor. Now, I don't know, right? Well, this is weird. Right?
Yeah.
I've been sort of doing some reflection. For my 5th birthday, I got a scientific calculator. I could
They
not.
were determined. They were going to get you there.
I could not think of a worse gift for a 5-year-old.
So that when your maths teacher said you can't carry a calculator everywhere you go, you can go, yes, I can.
That's right. Look
'cause I
at
got
this.
it.
I've got one. Yeah, it was insane. So look, I don't know whether or not it was just a kind of like family like push to get me there, but I really liked chemistry. I really liked science when I was in high school, and it was just a natural progression for me then to take that on to university. And I had ultimate support. The one thing my parents said to me was deliver the grades, because it cost a lot of money, like they weren't very well off. And they just said, like, we're willing to let you focus completely on your studies. Just make sure that you make the most of this opportunity.
Yeah.
And that was
Yeah.
it.
Was that in the UK? Or?
That was in the UK, in Swansea.
Okay.
Yeah, in South Wales.
Yes.
I loved it. I love it. Like, Swansea is such a rubbish place. But for a university student, it's incredible. It's by the ocean, it's cold, it's dreary, but there's such a great community all revolved around the university, and the campus life is what I absolutely loved.
So you knew you wanted to be at uni, but did you know what you wanted to study at uni?
So I think I was tricked into doing chemistry from a really nice teacher who was encouraging. So I was good at two things, music and science. And I think science was something that I had convinced myself would result in a stable job, having never actually looked at what a scientist's job looks like. Whereas music was always something I kept as a hobby. And so I thought, okay, well, based on that and based on how much support I got from my chemistry teacher, chemistry was the natural choice. Yeah.
So what was your undergraduate degree?
Chemistry. It's weird, isn't it?
Yep.
Because here,
You're right, said it.
here, in the UK, you actually specialise straight out from university. So you choose biology, chemistry, physics, whatever it is. So I actually did like one physics module, one psychology. Like I had a bit of pick and mix in there, but largely you just choose a subject and you just plow on through and just hope you like it.
Yep.
Because in Australia, it's obviously a bit different.
Well,
Where
they
I
like
think
you to do broadening electives.
You broaden, and I think that's much better. It is much better. Would I have chosen chemistry? I think so. I don't think I regret choosing chemistry, but I would have loved to have done more like broader science stuff, and also maybe like a language or something. I think that would have been cool.
Did you go straight from school to uni?
I did. Yeah.
No gap year?
No gap year. No, only the posh people do gap years in the UK, and I wasn't one
I
of
had
those.
16 gap years.
I did. Oh my God, you're super posh.
And then so after your undergrad, did
Yeah.
you do honours or masters?
So it's weird. I'm looking back. I've like broken the mold for nearly everything. So yeah, my undergraduate was a straight up masters. So I didn't actually do an undergraduate.
Yeah.
I did. I had to
Was
be
it all in one?
It's an all-in-one. It was a 4-year course. It wasn't quite an MSc, which is the Masters of Science. It wasn't quite a bachelor's. It was somewhere in the middle, and it was called an M-Chem. So it was a Masters of Chemistry. And I'm not even sure if they offer it anymore, to be honest. But it was it's like a postgrad and an undergrad all rolled up in one. It's 4 years. You do an honours year, like as your last year, where you do a project with a scientist. And so that was my first 4 years of university was my M-Chem. And then that was enough to springboard me into doing a PhD.
And
so there was a heavy research component that meant
Only in the last year. So kind of
like honours.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if I was to have finished at the end of that 4th year, I'd have got nothing. Do you know what I mean? Like if I didn't do the last year, I wouldn't have been able to get a bachelor's even. So I had to stay in the top 10%.
So you really committed for 4 years, right?
I
at the
really
beginning.
did, yeah. I think when the government said we'll give you some money to study, I was like, easy. I can do
this for 4 years. Yeah.
So when did you know you wanted to do a PhD?
So my undergraduate was with a year abroad. So it was M-Chem with a year abroad, and you could also do M-Chem with a year in industry. That sounded boring. Like, I don't want to be in industry. So I did M-Chem with a year abroad, and the government was paying for a return flight to anywhere in the world as long as there was a partner uni. So I was like, let's go to Australia. It's really far away. It's the longest I could ever go.
And it's hot.
And it's hot, yeah. And, like Kylie Minogue lives here, and it's great. Does she even? Anyway.
No, I think she's in England
She's
now.
a part-timer. She's a part-timer.
We swapped.
Yeah.
She was like, we can't possibly
You
have
and-
two
you and
hot
Kylie.
people in the same country. Did chemistry with a year abroad, chose Australia, and I remember sat on the flight, no friends, no family, no connections, going to the other side of the world, sat being jet lagged, tired, being like, what have I done? This is the worst decision ever. But, after about 6 months here, I fell in love with it. I actually got more homesick for Australia when I went back than than the UK when I first came out.
So is that Newcastle?
It was Newcastle, New South Wales. And ever since that moment, I was like, I'm going to come back. And don't tell ScoMo, but I came back because it was the easiest way to get a visa. Do you know what? I didn't even think I wanted to do a PhD. I was just like, it's more study, and I just have to fill out like 5 bits of paperwork as opposed to like residency and other stuff. So ScoMo, don't send me back. I'm a resident now. You can't check me out.
I wonder if they changed that rule.
Maybe
we let Andy in quick.
Yeah.
So you did that at Newcastle?
Yep.
What was your project part of a grant? So did you tack onto a grant, or did you get free reign over that?
No, I think so. My position was part of a larger project, which was a collaboration between a surface scientist, a physicist, and an organic chemist. And so I had 3 supervisors during my PhD, which was a nightmare.
All coming from different disciplines?
Yeah,
or slightly different?
Yeah, and everyone had their own, academia's like, everyone's got their own castle they've built and they protect, and if you're not in it, you're against it.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of a balancing act. I guess a really good lesson in politics, academic politics. So it was a project that they had set up between themselves, and I don't even know where the money was coming from, but I knew it was a project that they were looking for PhD students to come in on, and I was lucky enough to get accepted.
So what was your project? And please explain it like I'm 5.
Yeah.
Okay. So my project was creating a solar paint. So imagine at the moment that a solar panel is made of silicon, which is hard and brittle, and it's hard to kind of manufacture cheaply. So the idea was that we would create an ink or a paint so that you could paint it onto your roof, connect it up, and generate electricity.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Now, did we get there? A little bit. Are they still trying to get there? A little bit. Everything moves and changes. But we did actually better the world record for that type of solar cell at the time, which was fantastic during the 3 years. And so to get a little bit deeper, so the paint consisted of tiny, tiny balls of semiconducting material. What that means is it conducts electricity. So imagine like a big kind of bowl with ping pong balls in it. And then just shrink that down, shrink until you can no longer see the ping pong balls. And that was the paint. And it had like water in it to kind of like in between the ping pong balls to hold it together. Yeah. That's right. And we'd literally just paint it onto a surface, and then we generated electricity from it.
Wow.
So, but guess how much? Guess what? 0.0008%.
Okay, so maybe it's not going to change the world, but it worked.
It worked, and that was the main thing. And actually, we got that up to 0.8 throughout the course of my PhD. And to put that into perspective, a solar panel at the moment is about between 13 and 25% efficient. So a long way to go, but it had other uses. So a solar panel at the moment is a panel that's rigid and you can put it on a roof and that's it. The idea with the solar paint is that you could paint it on any surface. The roof of a
much
car,
larger surface area.
Much larger surface area, that's right. So even though it's, let's say 1% efficient, but if you can cover 100% of the air, or increase the area by 100%, or 100 times, then you'd start sort of seeing the benefits of that technology.
Roads, like exactly. Roads, and that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So did someone else pick up that and keep traveling with it?
As far as I know. So the results of my PhD were presented on the New Inventors, so the ABC's New Inventors by Paul Dastor, who was the physics component of my leadership team. And they continued with that. They were looking for partners with Dulux and other paint manufacturers. I'm not sure where that ended up going, but I believe it's still continuing. Because I look at my H index and every so often it goes up, and I'm like, oh, good.
Somebody's looking at this and thinking about this.
That's right.
So how did you actually... what was your methodology?
So the great thing about physical chemistry is you just try stuff, and if
Yeah.
it doesn't work, then it's also a result, and you can report it.
Yep.
Look, the methodology was to create a stable ink, which was our first issue. So that was really about using different types of soaps, surfactants in the ink to make sure it doesn't crash out and just look rubbish. And so
because it's not enough to just actually be efficient. It actually has to not look horrible.
Get people to use it.
Yeah. So, and it has to stay stable so that when you put it on a shelf, that it's still an ink and it's not just like, it doesn't separate like oil and water.
Yeah.
So that was the first stage. And look, that's really quite simple. We just sort of relied on the literature, looking at what worked in other colloidal suspensions, they're called, to keep them stable, and just applied that to our inks. And then the next step, which was the most annoying, was getting that ink onto a surface nicely. Because I don't know, like there's this huge sort of like surface energy thing where if there's a small mismatch between your ink and the surface, it will just bead, or it will wet properly, or it's just...
It's not a matter of just getting a paintbrush and slapping it on.
No, not at all. So that was a huge part. It was probably my second to third year. And then the final kind of 6 months to a year was that testing of a solar panel. So the methodology really, just took us through making sure the paint was, on the ink was stable, then that it would actually wet onto a surface. And, like everything, you've got levers you can pull to achieve those, and we just pulled them at different amounts in different ratios, and if it didn't work, we scrapped it. If it did work, we sort of honed in on that. So it really was using the literature to inform our methodology, implementing it, looking what worked, moved on. So really basic, kind of like science, right? It's like the scientific process.
And were you alone in the lab doing it by yourself, or was there always a group of people that were there working together?
So I was responsible for the ink on my own. But then I handed it across to other colleagues. So I had help with the solar panel creation and the testing of the kind of solar panel aspect. But yeah, everything else, it was just me in a lab with a sonicator, with like a wand that emits high, ultrasonic radio frequency, just like like for ages, like years, like hours, days, months, years in a lab with this thing that just went going insane. Podcast though kept me sane. So this is what I'm hoping. Wouldn't it be brilliant? All right, if you're sat near an ultrasonic wand right now, good luck.
Yes. Yes, keep on podcasting.
Keep on going, that's right.
So you didn't just do your project, you had other things going on at the same time with your PhD. And did that help you deal with some of the challenges of a PhD, is to have those distractions, or
absolutely
alternative avenues? I shouldn't call them distractions.
Yeah, so look, during my PhD, I just focused on the PhD thing. It wasn't until my postdocs that I really started exploring other opportunities, mainly because I was just not convinced it was for me. And
the life of a scientist.
The life of a scientist, the life of So look, during my PhD was very much focused on drinking lots of alcohol in moderation, and then
and listening to buzzy machines.
And I'd worked hard and played hard. And then when I sort of came out, so I did a year in I don't know if I'm jumping ahead from your schedule right now, but I did a year in industry because I thought, well, academia is not for me, maybe industry is for me. So I was an explosives chemist in the mines.
That sounds amazing.
Well, it is until you realise you got to spend instead of like sat there with a wand, you're in a big filthy hole all day with men that really swear a lot. I tried it once, right? Like the working mine site is so blokey, and well, at least the ones I went to, and they were all talking and swearing, and I tried swearing once like them. I dropped the C-bomb, right? I don't use it. I don't do it a lot, but they looked at me as if like a toddler had said it. Like, oh, bless him. He's trying to swear. I never did it again. Yeah.
You're almost part of the team.
That's right. Yeah, so look, that year made me realise that maybe it wasn't for me, because I didn't really like academia. I didn't really like industry. So I went back into academia, which is so bad, isn't it? It's so bad. It sucks people back in.
Maybe was it the actual subject that is, or is still chemistry still a great love of your life?
it's kind of like Stockholm syndrome, where like I've done it enough that I think I love it. It's abused me enough that I think I love it. Chemistry is actually it was like they call it the central science, right? So I had a little bit of physics, I had a little bit of biology, I had a little bit of everything. It was a really great subject, but I don't think it was the subject that pushed me away from academia. I just think it was academia, and there was a huge point. I went through this horrible stage where I was trying to control it or trying to fight the system. And I caused loads of scenes. In my last postdoc, I caused a lot of scenes, right? And looking back on it, it was just not a cry for help, but just me trying to be like, what? How can you control this thing? It's not nice. And I think then just going, you know what? I'm not going to fight the system. I have to accept that I have to fit in it or not be in it. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm jumping.
Is that about the time you delivered your TEDx?
Yeah. It's strange that. No. Stockholm, I just stayed in after that. So the TEDx
it's like a cult. It keeps you there.
Yeah. And like the illusion of progress was fantastic because it allowed me to express all of the things I was feeling, and I had great reception from it. And I actually gave that talk at a Wiley seminar series. It was an invited talk about 3 or 4 years later, which was excellent. But yeah, I stayed in. You know, like I was like, fight the system, stay in, keep going.
And then you suddenly realize there's only so many times you can bang up against that wall.
That's right, yeah. And there's a quote that I read recently, which I really like, which is, you can fail at doing something you don't like doing, so why not try to fail at something you do like doing? And I was like, you know what? That's the mindset I was in. I was like, well, I can stay in this and hate it and still fail, still be forced out because I didn't get the funding or the blah, whatever. Or I can just try to do stuff I like all the time. And if I fail, yes, it hurts even more. But with the payoff that eventually maybe I'll be doing something I like
because you may not
forever.
fail.
Exactly. Well, yeah. And failing is, there's learning, fail and learn.
Yep.
And there's also first attempt in learning is what people are like, oh, it's not failing, it's your first attempt, you know, like. And so, yeah, look, as long as you fail and learn and move forward, I think that's all you can hope for. But yeah, that's where I'm right now.
So just to plot out the timeline, when did you finish your PhD?
2011 or something like that.
And then you went straight into an academic role?
No, so PhD finished. Then that year I spent in the mines.
Yep.
So 13 months in the mines. Trying to fit in with the big sweary men, and then about 7 years then in postdocs.
Yeah.
And once it just like it keeps you in because it's like, okay, I got a postdoc, so I had 3 years, great. And then why don't you apply for this funding? Okay, I will. And then I was lucky, right? Nothing more than luck. I got my own funding for a year, so that stretched it out a year. And then I got on this other project. I was sort of co-supervising someone, and then they wanted to keep me on. So one of my friends calls it scrunge money or scunge money, which is like where people just go, oh, we need this person around because they've got all the skills and all the information. Yeah. So we'll drag some information from here, some money from here and here and here. And now,
gee, that sounds familiar.
And now you've got this position, but it's only for 3 months or 6 months, or if you're lucky, 2 years, you know. And that's where I found myself, is that they were always like, oh, but we've got this for you. Or, oh, you've got your own money. And
And the bird in the hand.
That's
keeps
right.
you there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, you know, I was ready to leave. I just got an award, which was the Unsung Hero. This is like such a humble brag. I just call it myself.
No, go ahead. We want to hear it.
Yeah,
well, this is why I was at the... Anyway, so I'd won this award. I don't know if you know how important and famous I am. But anyway, so it was... And what that did is it put me in a room with a load of important people because I stood up and shook a hand and got my award and walked away. And I was ready to leave academia, right? I was like, right, my contract's up in October. I'm out of here after this. And in that meeting, or in that event, I met someone, and they went, oh, what are you doing next? And instead of saying, I'm leaving academia, I went, I don't know. And they went, oh, I've got a contract for you if you want it. And of course, like bird in the hand. Yeah, okay, I'll do that. Always telling myself, you know what, I'll do this and then I'll do something else. Yeah. But there's always something to keep you 3 months, 6 months, whatever. And that was a 4. Do you know so they offered it to me, and I was like, I'm going to play hardball, right? I'm going to go in because I wanted to work 4 days a week. And so I was like, I'm going to go in, and if they don't give me 4 days a week, a pay increase from what they're offering me, and so I don't know, something else, then I'm not going to take it. they caved. They didn't cave, but I was like, they give me everything. And I was like,
like, you can't say no now.
So I didn't work Fridays for like that whole time I was. Anyway,
and
so
that's a consolation.
Yeah,
but
it's a nice having 3-day weekend.
Yeah, but that did give me Fridays to find things I like.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So
you weren't stepping into nothing. You were stepping into a plan.
Right. So that's when I started doing a lot of science communication stuff. Started writing for Australia Science Channel. Started writing for Australian Quarterly. I was their science communication columnist. What that did is give me a portfolio then where I was able to show that I was at least interested in producing this sort of content and use that as a springboard to get out. So in hindsight, it did work, but there's never a good time to leave.
No.
Yeah. So
it was, I suppose you didn't have the push-pull factor. You kind of had a split sort of, whereas now there's a lot of people having to leave academia just because of the fact that there's no money.
Yeah.
And there is this push now to discover what it is they can
nest.
do.
Yeah. So it's a little irrelevant now, but the focus of our questions is very much on your PhD.
Sure.
But why was your research important? Like, what was the value that you got or that the wider community got out of the PhD? And actually, perhaps the value is more what you're doing right now, but...
Yeah. Look, value for the research project was very much that it was low-cost solar.
Mm-hmm.
So solar panels are made in like batches. Mm-hmm. And that batching process means that it's very expensive. Like you cut out a bit of silicon and you move it across to the next thing. But the idea was to produce solar panels in what they call a roll-to-roll process, where you imagine a roll of plastic on one side and it's like the newspapers, how they're printed.
Oh, yeah.
All Australian money is printed that way as well. So you get a roll of plastic, you send it through these rollers up and down, up and down, up and down. You add things, take things, spray things, print things, emboss things, and then all in one go. And it's continuous. Yeah. So the idea is you turn it on in the morning and it just prints. And the idea was to produce solar panels using that process. Spray on our ink or our paint, spray on the other protecting layers and the other buffer layers and everything else it needs. And then at the end, have a roll of solar panel that you could cut up. And so, yeah, that really was the low-cost solar dream. And in terms of value to me is that it just taught me all those transferable skills, project management, and also now starting businesses. I'm amazed at how close starting a business is to doing a science project.
Setting it up.
You make an assumption, you test it. Did the customers, instead of like, the universe's laws deciding whether it works, it's a person or a set of people or a customer or a client. So you say, hey, do you want this? And they go, no. And you go, why? Because it's too expensive, it's rubbish, and actually it doesn't solve the problem I actually have got. Well, what's your actual problem? This other weird thing. Great, that's a new business. That's what I'll do. So that, I think, without my PhD background, the art or the science of starting a business and growing it to revenue would be very much harder for me.
So do you use many of those, maybe you do use those transferable skills, but do you use any of your science skills in your current roles?
Yeah, not directly. So no direct writing. I mean, writing is a science skill. Documentation, which I hate. Filling in forms.
Yeah, you regret it later if you don't do it properly the first time.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, so look, no hard science skills have come across, but definitely, I mean, those transferable soft or essential skills.
Yep. So then would you do the PhD again, knowing what you know now?
Yes. Yeah, I would. I would 100% do the PhD again, but I would not do as many postdocs.
Yeah. To get out early.
Yeah, get out earlier. But hindsight's 20/20, isn't it?
So that experience of standing in the lab with your wand has not deterred you in any way?
No, it's all not. A PhD, you build up friendship groups. You do all these awesome things. You're still pretty young, so you're kind of still finding out who you are as a person. And a PhD, and also. There was a moment where I was a bit of an arsehole and I just loved being Dr. Stapleton, right? Like, that's kind of cool. It is a bit of a power kick. Yeah, it's a bit weird. And but then you hang out with everyone who's got a PhD and you're like, I'm not special. But yeah, there is an ego thing, I think, that goes along with being doctor something.
Just don't ask you on a plane. So
Yeah.
someone's having a heart attack. No.
I'll give it a go.
I'm sure there's transferable skills I can apply to this.
That's right, yeah. I stabbed someone in the trachea. That'll do it.
Maybe thinking more generally, how do you think academia can more better promote the value of research and translate the research that lives in universities into outcomes in the real world?
Get rid of the marketing teams.
Marketing teams at universities?
They ruin everything.
Oh, you're thinking of all those headlines that take this really complex idea and turn it into a clickbait.
So now having launched Verbalize and working closely at the interface between scientists and marketing teams. Remember, scientists want to actually promote the research. They want to show that they've done this and these are the results. Marketing teams wants to make the institution look great, right? And they don't always go hand in hand, or there is a conflict of interest on what is the important part of the story. In my opinion, it should always be the science, right? So let's highlight the science. But unfortunately, marketing teams, their key performance indicators get you into advertiser space, like into the advertiser.
You want Channel 7 to pick it up.
You want Channel 7 to pick it up. So what can you do? Spin it up, make it a bit weird. I understand, and it's not their fault, but if universities were to completely dissolve marketing teams or spin out a second science marketing team, there'd be so much more benefit to collaboration, transfer of information, that sort of stuff. But at the moment, you've got marketing teams that are trying to balance attracting students with getting the science into, which is essentially just to attract more students, right? Getting the science out into the advertiser.
And
make it sexy, yeah. Oh God, what's sexy science? Right, it's not sexy. I did it topless once, and even then, all the hair got into the sonicator wand. It was gross. But yeah, look, that's
a whole PhD in itself.
That's right, yeah. Topless science. That's what can happen. It's easy. Get rid of them.
So do you think we can, maybe science, it's a bit harder. So we're in a health field and communicating research in health is not, everybody knows what the organs are and you can explain. No, actually, I'm making assumptions based on, like, everyone has the same knowledge I do, and that's obviously not the case. But is it harder for science? Like, could we ask scientists to explain their research to people and have them be able to do it effectively?
Yeah, okay. So this is what I've learned over 2 years is that you've got scientists that give no, can I say shits? Give no shits about communicating their work, 100%. And I know that because we've forced them into our process using verbalize.science and they hate it. They don't do it. They don't care. So no, we can't rely on those scientists. Absolutely. Because we're asking scientists to be super introverted and do science. And
work alone on this complex thing for 5 years.
That's right.
But now be a total people person.
Yeah. And now go out and be the next Alan Duffy or, whatever. Just put on a bow tie, slick your hair back if you've got some. I slick my beard to the side. And also, be attractive. Look at science communicators. If you don't follow,
if you're indie ream,
you're just like,
there's so much competing ideas, and everyone has a platform.
Yeah.
That Twitter and whatever, you might not use it really effectively, but everybody can have.
But there's also that whole making it more accessible, and that there's in certain areas people who don't want to make it accessible because that's their thing. Their thing is being super intelligent and more intelligent than the rest of the population, and I don't want to dumb it down for you.
And it really is seen as dumbing it down by a lot of people, and it's not, it's like explaining to a 5-year-old. You wouldn't go, you're dumb. No, I'm explaining it at a level which is appropriate for my audience.
Yeah.
But on the other side of that is that you have got early career researchers, PhD students and others that are so engaged with the communication aspect. And I think they're the people that will be taking the reins of communication. So they can help people, the old crusty scientists that don't want to communicate. Because let's face it, scientists are not rewarded for communicating. They're rewarded for bringing in money to an institution that hates them and producing papers so their H index goes up so they can further their own career.
Yeah, so they can be
Communicating does help with those in a way, but because there's no direct link, scientists will not be doing it.
Yeah.
Whereas you need to rely on scientists that have a desire to communicate. And I'm finding with Verbalize that the emails I get back from older scientists are, leave me alone. Why do I have to do this? Go away.
I'm doing important work.
Yeah. Do you know what I say in a webinar? And this man, he was like, how long is this going to go? I was like, an hour. And he was like, well, I'm very important. I've got about 100 emails. I was like, well, would you like me to stop? And he said, no. I was like, you just wanted
I want you to acknowledge
I want you to acknowledge how important I am. Anyway, but then on the other side, I think we've got a lot of really great early career researchers, and they need to be supported, funded, and rewarded for communicating. And that's something that I feel really lacks in universities, is that they're not rewarding early career researchers for
putting their stuff
out there.
Yep.
So if there was there's altmetric. If you started promoting people based on their altmetric score, boom, clever people, a metric to game, they're going to start communicating.
Yeah. So you enjoyed your PhD experience?
Yes.
What do you think you would be doing if you didn't discover chemistry? Do you think you would have taken an academic path anyway?
I think I've always been attracted to learning. I think that's one thing I've learned about myself, meta, is that I just enjoy learning. And I think if you stop learning, just the end of growth. Like even if you're stationary in what you know, you're going backwards because the world is progressing, right? You've got to at least learn enough to keep up.
Keep going.
And so I feel like I would always be learning. I don't know what that would be. I don't know if science necessarily would attract me back to it if that was my only thing. But I certainly feel like science or music, those were the two things. So if I didn't do science, I reckon I'd be a happy but struggling musician.
One of our guests this morning is a composer, so you should listen to her podcast about it.
Yeah, I will. Absolutely.
So to you, what is a PhD?
A PhD is a time where you get to flex your academic muscles all on your own. You set a project, like, I don't know, it depends on the research team and the supervisor, but it really is a time where you get to discover a lot about yourself. It's a time when you get to explore new ideas with like a safety net. But unfortunately, it's a time where I think people can get a little bit too focused on that, where I think that this kind of idea of, okay, 80% of your time should be on your research, 20% of your time, let's try other things. Let's spread the wings a little bit. So it is a time to find out what you like doing as well. And yeah, PhD, it's all about independence. It's that first time when you step into the academic world and you're like, oh, it's up to me?
Yeah.
I got to do
I have
stuff.
to make the decision of what's going to happen next.
I have to do things.
It is a big step from being an undergraduate to being a PhD student, where you suddenly you walk in and you expect on day one somebody's going to hold your hand and take you there, but they go, no, you're a PhD student. You've got to sort it out now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a difficult path to navigate when you don't know what you're doing either. It's an interesting. That's a whole learning curve on its own.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, but it is the best opportunity for growth.
So what would you say to undergrads who might be contemplating a pathway to PhD? Is it something you would suggest or recommend?
Blindly, no. Just so there's this path of least resistance, which is rubbish. It's so rubbish.
It's just you fall into a PhD.
You fall in, like, and you remember, and this comes back to my TEDx talk, which is it's a big old pyramid scheme, right? The academic at the top relies on your labor to further his career, right? Or sorry, their career. So they rely on a huge number of people coming up beneath them to produce papers, produce science, produce novel work to promote their career for a position that they will never leave, right? So you've got to go into it knowing that. Is that a deal breaker? I don't think so. But if you go in knowing that and you go in with this split of I'm going to do some science and I'm going to explore other options. What do I like? Do I like project management? Am I a details person? Do I like communicating? Am I an extroverted kind of scientist? Do I want to do that stuff? And have an exit plan. Yeah. So the kind of analogy I gave in my TEDx talk was, musicians all want to be a rock star. Well, all want to be famous and known and be like, wow, there's that person that plays blah. Most of them won't get there. But does that put them off? Like, absolutely not. But a lot of them, then you've got to have a backup plan. Yeah. So make sure that you do build up other skills so that when the ideas of become a scientist, rock star drop away, you at least have something you enjoy to back it up. Could be teaching, could be accounting, whatever you actually like. And that's up for you to decide. So yeah, should people do PhDs? Absolutely, but go into them with their eyes wide open.
Yeah.
And so also thinking about kids who are finishing school, or maybe kids that are considering subject choices for year 11 and 12.
Yeah.
And all the pressures that is, it's a really high pressure moment to make decisions. What do you say to them?
You can only make the decision based on the information you've got at that time. And today, what's it they say, 3 careers? Yeah. I'm on my second as a business starter. I don't even know what that is, but and then I'm sure that there'll be one later on in my life, 50, 60 plus, where I'm like, oh, actually, I just want to paint. Or, whatever, I don't know.
Yeah.
Or be a rock star.
Or be a rock star, yeah. Oh, God, yeah, drugs. But yeah, so it is daunting, but you remember you can only make the decisions based on the information you've got. So what do you like doing? And also there are so many external factors about what you should be doing from society. So quite often our dreams are hidden with this kind of veneer of practicality.
Yeah.
I don't want
to have to make sure you get a job at the end of this.
Exactly, yeah. I don't want to go be a musician because if I'm an accountant, I'll earn more money. So I'll become, do you want to be an accountant? Does anyone really want to be an accountant?
No, I can't think of anything more stressful.
Yeah. And so look, that's it. And it comes back to one of those things, which is what would you do if money was no object? And I wish I'd asked myself that very seriously, very early on, because I think my answers would have been maybe similar. I did like science, but you have to ask yourself, if money was no object, what would you be doing?
I'd be lying on a beach somewhere with some cocktails.
There we are. Great. Instagram influencer. That's what you are. That's the advice I'd give. And don't focus too much on the what ifs, maybes, buts of the future. They'll work themselves out as long as you are happy with the decision you made right then and there.
So
where is your thesis today?
Yeah.
Oh, what do you
Could you lay your hands on a copy of your thesis?
Yeah. It is. So I've got one in Plymouth with my dad. I've got one in my spare bedroom, and there's one in Newcastle University's archive. So yes, it's at home right now. Like I could go get it in 20 minutes.
So you know where it is.
I know where it is. Yeah.
So did you...
Surprisingly, not everybody can say that.
Oh really?
Yeah.
And did your dad read your thesis?
No, he said he read the acknowledgements where I said thanks to mum and dad, and he said he got bored after the first page.
Yeah, I think that's what my mum read. Like, I'm in there. Okay, good.
And have you ever gone through this process of reflecting on your PhD journey before?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have looked back and thought, this was what it was.
Yeah. So when you start a business, your business can only operate as well as you can. And so there is a lot of kind of like weird self-help stuff that you find yourself doing. And part of it is working out your strengths, what you did enjoy, didn't enjoy. And reflecting on my education was a huge part of that. And so, yeah, it's a fantastic time. Doing a PhD is great. I just wish that someone had sat me down and told me everything about what it was really like. Like
honestly,
openly. Like at the end of the PhD, you get out and you go, oh, is that what I was training for?
Oh, okay. So that does lead to our final question, which is about myths. What's the myth you want to put a pin in and say that's not true about PhDs or about academia?
People think that a PhD is like more study. Do you know, like, it's like, oh, you're still in uni.
Yeah.
Oh,
When
how many
really-
times I had a T-shirt which said, "Don't ask me about my thesis."
Yeah.
Because they're like, "Are you still doing that?"
Yeah, that's right. Because they just see it as an extension of like more uni stuff. So the biggest myth, I guess, is externally, which is, it's not more study. It is really, it's a job, and you have to approach a PhD like a job. Even though you're left to your own devices, and it's good to turn up at 10 or 11 or 12 and leave at 2 and go get drunk in the uni bar, like, responsibly.
Oh, I had to go and pick up kids, so my story was a bit different.
Yeah, a bit different. Yeah. You were just drinking wine at
That's right.
midnight alone.
You're not alone when you have kids.
No, you're never alone when you have kids. Well, especially when the kid's counting your wine.
Yeah. That's glass 4, mummy. I know. So look, the myth, okay, then the biggest myth, I think, is that it's not further study, that it's a job, and that you have to approach it like a job. Do your 9 to 5, get there, do it. Even though Facebook is distracting, even though social media and friends are distracting.
How many times did you say, I'm turning off Facebook? Okay, I'm back.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And do you know what? My hand, so I left Facebook a year and a bit ago, and my hand still goes FACE automatically on the keyboard to bring up the prompt. How crazy is that? Stupid.
Well, this has been a really entertaining, very entertaining discussion, chat. And we're really very grateful for your time and your generosity. And thank you so much for coming on
and talking to us.
Our very first series of our podcast.
An absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
The very last thing that we should end with is a huge thank you to all of the people who came and gave their time to be interviewed for this podcast series.
Very generous.
It was very generous of them, and it was so fascinating. And after every interview, I felt so inspired to be a researcher and to use my PhD. So it was a very eye-opening experience and a really interesting experience.
Yes, and we're really very grateful to every single one of them. But we're also especially grateful to Dr. Sharon Pittman for telling us
gave us
about the grant.
The inside story about the grant. Yes.
Who gave us the inside story about the grant that we applied for and we got, which supported the production of this podcast. So thank you to Inspiring South Australia and to Sharon for your very generous support of our podcast.
Thanks for listening to Career Sessions with Dr. Stephanie Champion and Dr. Tamara Agnew. If you like the show and want to know more, check out www.careersessions.com, where you can send us your suggestions for future series, and subscribe so you know when a new episode is posted. If you love it, tell all your friends, and please leave us a review on iTunes. Thanks to our sponsor, Inspiring South Australia, for their generous support, and to our producer, Rory, at Podbooth. Join us next time when we talk careers with another leader in the field.